Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. Cliff Nonnenmacher is a franchise expert, serial entrepreneur, and co-founder of Franosity, a franchise consulting firm. Cliff is a former investment banker and left his Wall Street job in 2003 to pursue a master franchise opportunity in New York and Connecticut, marking the beginning of his career in franchising. Throughout his career, he has owned and operated a variety of franchise brands, including Cartridge World, Personal Training Institute, PuroClean, Made Right, and several independent businesses. Additionally, Cliff has played a key role in developing several successful brands, both domestically and internationally, including Four Seasons Sunrooms, Contours Express, and Contours Express. Cliff's deep passion for mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs and guiding them towards successful business ownership sets him apart. Whether you're considering franchising or simply curious about building a thriving business, Cliff's insights are invaluable, and we're going to have those invaluable insights on the DealQuest Podcast today. Welcome, Cliff.
Hey, thank you so much. Good to see you again. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, so listen, great to have you. What I love is, it's interesting. I told you, I think when we had the pre-call that we've had a number of franchise-related folks on. You have a very interesting background in terms of not only the franchise side, but the investment banking experiences, the entrepreneur business ownership outside of franchise models. So I'm looking forward to having you bring that all to the table. But before we do that, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid growing up, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I'm assuming a multiple franchise owner and, that kind of stuff, and maybe even investment banker. Probably wasn't it back then, but you tell me.
It's interesting. I always actually knew what I wanted to do. And I feel terrible for young people that don't, and they flounder. I had just blinding clarity at probably 6, 7, 8. I knew I wanted to be a business owner. It was just kind of bizarre. Yeah, kind of bizarre, I would say. People that do know me will say, like, you're just different. I just knew. I feel like I always really have thought clarity. I feel like I always kind of know where I want to be, how, making decisions. I feel like I have a good handle on that. So when I was young, I happened to live next door to a pioneer in the plastics industry.
Okay.
Massive company. I lived in an upper middle class to affluent community in New York. And my next door neighbor was a pioneer in plastics, and each child was a rock star. One of them was an engineer with NASA. The other was an investment banker with Smith Barney. The other one was a pilot with Delta. The other one was making jewelry for Avon. Boom, 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 like the Brady Bunch. These were my next door neighbors, and they inspired me because they put themselves through college by raking golf balls out of ponds. And that's actually how I started at an extremely young age. They would actually pay me to go out in the Great South Bay during the cold climate, and they would pay me to go under their left or right foot to yank a clam out of the bay bottom, because they made a living not only raking golf balls, but they were raking clams and scallops out of the bay, and they put themselves through college. They're incredibly inspiring people and gave me some clarity at a young age. So I always knew what I wanted to do.
I love that. That's amazing. And I'll tell you, in 320 some odd episodes of this podcast, I can probably count on my fingers how many people knew what they wanted to do at that early age. So it is very unusual. And I look back, people say to me sometimes, how did you become an entrepreneur, Corey? Because I actually didn't have models, really. Like everybody I knew, I grew up in a lower middle class neighborhood in New York. Everybody I knew worked for somebody, right? That's the difference between upper and lowers. And you don't have as many entrepreneurs in the lower middle class. And I had one uncle, I remember, who had a business, like blinds and shades. right? But other than that, I had no models, but somehow it was inherently in me as well. So that's fascinating.
We weren't wealthy, though, just from context. We were not wealthy. My father was a police officer.
Yep.
They just happened to be really smart and strategic about good schools, good neighborhoods, and they fought like hell to live in a community that they probably didn't have the earnings potential to live in. So I was surrounded by great people, but we were not the wealthy people in the neighborhood.
Right, I got it.
Right.
One other question looking back, what was your first deal of any type? This is going to be an interesting one for you. It could be something when you were a lot younger or
no idea.
What comes to
I've
mind?
done a lot of deals. Yeah. So, I mean, there are small deals. Like, my father retired very young from the police force and we moved to a place called Marco Island, Florida. It's an island 3 miles by 6 miles. So you have perspective. It's very small. 10,000 people live there year round, and then you have a huge spike during, the peak season. I started right out of high school. I was a doorman for the Hilton. I started detailing cars when they would come into the hotel. That evolved into owning a food delivery company where I then quit the Hilton and started my first business. I was 19 and I delivered for 16 restaurants, a auto parts store, pharmacy, and I just delivered food. I believe, and I've said this publicly several times, I believe I'm the first subcontractor for McDonald's in the United States. I had my own dedicated cash register. I did a couple hundred deliveries a day minimum with them. And on top of that, I delivered for Subway, I delivered for Little Caesars, I put Domino's Pizza out of business multiple times. They changed hands because their only value proposition was we deliver. And once I was there, it's like we all deliver.
Right.
Delivery is no longer a unique value proposition. Even today with Uber and Uber Eats, it's like everyone delivers. Like, what else are you known for? So that's how I started. That evolved into getting into the water sport business, which was, I would start to say the deals are now getting a little bit bigger. I took over for Hilton Grand Vacation up in LBI, New Jersey. I took over all their water sport locations, jet skis, parasail boats, all that stuff. But I was making money when I was an independent, but I didn't start creating wealth until I got involved in franchising.
Yeah.
So my first real deal where we started to use business acumen and strategy and negotiation tactics would probably be Personal Training Institute, where we started to target failing gyms, paying them, let's say, 0 to 10 cents on the dollar, and then very quickly executing flawlessly, following the operating model of the franchise, and then selling those businesses within a 12-month period of time for literally a nosebleed multiple. I'm not talking about like double any money. I'm talking about 1,000+% return. And it's interesting because the seller is saying, I've done everything I can to make this successful, right? And I'm like, okay, it's worth nothing. You failed. I'll give you X cents on a dollar. One of my most memorable deals in that world was, and for listeners, they really should pay attention to this because everyone thinks that the deal could make or break them. It's never the case. The case is always the landlord will fully destroy you when you fail in a brick and mortar brand. People don't realize the language inside of a commercial lease. And when they're struggling, that landlord, as I say, will turn a gun turret on you and your family, and they will enforce that personal guarantee, and they will finally destroy you. So understanding that, I would come in as the white knight and say, hey, I could get you out of that PG risk. Why don't you transfer the business to me? I'll pay you X cents on the dollar. And some of those deals, we were actually paid to take the business over.
Yeah, because
we weren't even buying.
Guarantee liability is really what they're afraid of. Yeah.
You're from New York. We had a guy up in Rybrook, New Rochelle. I mean, we had a couple of deals up in there. His exposure was about $175,000, and he paid us $25,000 just to take the gym. And again, get in, turn it around, and then find a buyer. I was never long gyms. I was always a momentum, almost like a buy, sell trader of businesses. I've really never been a buy, hold.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could do this quite a few times with you, right? On all the different deals and stuff like that. So
I love it. I mean, there's so many things of what you said is interesting. Years ago, and by the way, this is another difference. I mean, I'm going to say this with with a preface because I always, because I hear it all the time. People say, "Oh, I had that idea." Yeah, but you didn't execute on it, right? So with that, because the idea, oh, somebody took my idea. No. Like, I'm not saying there aren't brilliant ideas out there, but a lot of times the idea is a dime a dozen. The question is the execution on it, right? Like a lot of people might think, oh yeah, well, that's a great concept to buy a failing gym and turn it around. Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you turn it? So I want to get that, but I want to go back to your food delivery thing because this is one of these things that I was pretty, entrepreneurial minded, whatever. And listen, if you're entrepreneurial minded, you have a lot of deals you don't execute on, but you actually execute on some. And I always, this is back before Uber, and Grubhub and all that stuff. And I was always like, how did this, as somebody not started like a delivery business for these companies, right? That don't, because there was always like the one pizza place that maybe delivered, but it was also totally inconsistent, right? Because it would be whether Anthony or Susan came in or not that day, right? And, and how many, and then if they got overwhelmed with deliveries, it could take two hours to get your pizza because it was one person. And then the other ones would be like, oh, it's not worth the headache or whatever. So I always thought there was a business opportunity, one I never executed on. So kudos to you that you did that before it was a thing.
I wish I was smart enough to understand that it was a much bigger thing than just a few. Can you imagine? Like, we were basically Uber in 1990.
Right. But also the app technology wasn't around, like the tech play had to come in as well to be able to create scale on that. Right. So
Corey, my cell phone was the size of a purse.
Right.
I was paying $1.50 a minute on Marco Island when I bought that phone. And we had to communicate with our restaurants via pager. So we issued a number to each restaurant, 1 through 16, because there was 16 restaurants. And then they would enter their number, like McDonald's would enter 1. And then they would enter the number of minutes they wanted me to go and pick up the food. So it'd be 1. And if it was 911, it's like, we made a mistake. You need to get here immediately. Right. Or it'd be 1, if it was a pizzeria where they're making a pizza brick oven, it would be like 1, and then it would be a 25 or a 30 after it. Yeah, and it was successful. We did a great job. We had multiple trucks, and I was using the current technology, trunking units, radios, cell phones, pagers. I mean, I'm dating myself, but it was a blast. It was a blast. And it led to other opportunities.
Well, it's interesting on how much has happened with the app. Listen, we can trade hospital stories all the time. The last one I'll say, and then I want to get really into the meat of this, but not that long ago, maybe 15 years ago or so, but it was before a lot of these health apps and competition apps and weight loss things. And we actually, me and 3 other guys you got a feature in the Daily News in New York because we had created this, we called it our Fat Bastards Weight Loss Club, right? And it was so this is back in the day when a lot of the weight loss stuff was only directed to, there's Weight Watchers, all these things, Jenny Craig, that would mainly direct towards women, right? And we were like, okay, we're going to lose weight like men. It's going to be about trash talk competition, stuff, whatever, right? But it was all before there was apps and whatever. So we actually had an online like message board, right? Where you could post stuff, like one of those old message board things. Yeah. And we would do like a call a week and we post messages and you had to like post a certain number of times a week. And and it was all about, we all committed to a weight loss goal and, we were different sizes and everything. So it was and then the whole thing around it was whoever lost, right, who didn't hit that goal, actually all the money that you paid in, because you had to pay in money, all of that went to the guys who made their weight goals. Okay. Went and did something phenomenal, right? Like got front row tickets to some concert or travels to and you couldn't get to go, right? So it was all win-lose, all competition, all trash talk, like everything that's stereotypical, And we actually thought about, we actually looked into making it into a business. We had this Daily News thing or whatever. And if there were app technology then that really could, because the question was, how did we
scale it?
How do we scale that? How do we get it out there, right?
Power of the app.
Yeah. And then, all these apps came, all these weight loss companies.
Can you imagine what you and I could have done? Right. Just think about it. Like, if you and I lived in an era of that, it's unbelievable. Because, how do you scale back then? I mean, you got to give these businesses credit back then. Look at what we have now. AI. We have all these resources now. It's so true.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right. So let's jump into the deal side. So, all right. So we have your sort of entrepreneurial origin story and what drove that. But one of the things I always talk about is that there's a difference between an employee and an entrepreneur. You obviously sort of skip the employee phase. You have that entrepreneurial mindset from day one. But there's also a difference between an entrepreneur and a deal maker, right? And so you started doing deals even before, franchising, but also like recognizing, like just even recognizing this opportunity to buy the gems and be able to
Right.
where does that deal maker mindset come from? And then I want to lead into and why specifically franchising has become your thing.
That's a good question. I don't know how to answer it. My business partner, if he was on here right now, he would say he just sees it.
Yeah.
Like he just quickly sees the opportunity in the deal. And a lot of times people are catching up and I have already seen it. I think it's similar, in all fairness, you had a guest on that talked about chess a lot. He was a chess master.
Yeah.
And I think and I was a big time chess player. I used to play chess with my father all the time. I think there's a lot to be said for the game of chess. I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of things that we do as children that shape you as you become an adult. And it really, if you think about like different things, just activating areas of your brain to make better decisions, reasoning skills, problem solving. I think chess is a powerful board game, and I think it has a lot to do with life.
Yeah, that was Dennis Stearns. It was the episode 320, if anybody's looking at that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of things that he said. And being a look, that guy's like next level. I'm not that guy.
Right.
But I am a chess player like many that are sitting at the table and I'm 3-4 moves ahead. Like I could see where I'm going, right? And I think that has a lot to do with just looking at business. I mean, I think there's, people they're like good at things or they like things or they're attracted to things. Like I'm obsessed with it. There's a difference. Yeah. There's a difference between having an obsessive type of personality over something you love. Like I love business. I do. It's like, do I care about the football game? Unfortunately, no. I just want to fully immerse myself in all things business. Like back in the 80s, my favorite movie was Barbarians at the Gate. Like, how could that be a favorite movie? Everyone's watching Scarface, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Barbarians at the Gate? Yeah, I mean, that was like a freaking great movie. It was all strategy. It was all Wall Street. It was like all of that Gordon Gekko type stuff. It was a true story about R.J. Nabisco, largest LBO in history with Kravis, Kohlberg, and Roberts. I mean, it's a great story, right? So you think about like just learning from that, how they position themselves. I even, I've done some deals, and this is good for the audience. I've done some deals where I did like lockout provisions where no shop clauses. Because remember, I'm handing a dime to a dollar. Yeah. And I'm saying to that dollar, don't you take my dime offer and shop it, right? Yes. And I think it is one of the most underrated, underused strategies in negotiating is to make sure that your deal has enough time to get through the due diligence phase so that you can execute off of it at a screaming valuation versus them shopping it because you're shuffling your feet. And again, execution's everything. And I think the world is idea rich and execution poor. That's truly how I view the world. Yeah. And I actually put the world into two other buckets, which is like narrow intelligence and broad ignorance and the way people position themselves and the way they're not wealthy. When I think becoming wealthy in this country is one of the easiest things to do. And yet every day I'm on the phone with someone that's like, oh my God, I wish I had, I wish I did. It's always, I wish. It's there again, execute. Believe in something, do your homework, have conviction, and execute and own it. And yeah, if it drops, buy more of it. Like you have to have that mindset. It's really, I think it's a mindset a lot of times.
Yeah, no, and it's why I bring up mindset a lot in this podcast because I think everything starts with mindset. Everything, right? So if somebody can teach you skills, tactics, strategies, whatever, but if you don't have a mindset that has you believe that's possible, that has you be an executor, that has you, see that possibility, that has you believe that that's even true, right? As opposed to being skeptical or just whatever, like nothing. I mean, you can get the skills, you can get the training, you can learn the stuff if you have the right mindset, if you will, or learn and open and see possibilities, are willing to be open to possibilities, believe in, abundance as opposed to scarcity, and we can go on, all of that stuff. So
absolutely,
it's why I like to raise it because I think that's really the starting point. So, you talked about the no shop clauses. I mean, you spent some time in investment banking. I mean, that's a very typical, right, clause in an otherwise non-binding LOI on an M&A deal. Right, you have a binding NDA, binding no shop clause to give time for that reason. And even in bigger deals, there's even something further, which is a breakup fee, right?
That's right.
But in mid-market, and usually you have these no shop clauses. So no question. That's so. Let's go back. So how'd you get into investment banking?
So being in the water sport business and doing all the small deals that I did, I was making money. I had some money and I started trading. I was so early in day trading that my handle was actually blue chip. I was blue chip, not blue chip 5973, right? I was blue chip. That's how early I was with like, the Ameritrades, if you will, back in the day. I had a DTN satellite system. I traded. I fell in love with it. I took my portfolio to Wall Street and interviewed with Merrill, Raymond James, Dean Witter, Solomon Smith Barney, et cetera, et cetera. Got job offers. And I ended up taking the Smith Barney gig largely because of my neighbor that I grew up with. I thought John Houseman was the coolest old guy, right? Remember him? Like,
of course.
we make money the old fashioned way. There was something about that guy. I don't know. I just thought the panache of the firm. I love the sophistication, and I love with their M&A activity. I love what they were doing with Solomon, with Primerica. Ultimately, the deal they did with Sandy Weil over at Travelers, and then becoming Citigroup. Yep. I was there through all of those acquisitions, and then I viewed that as self-employment because you're not being paid. Like you're building your book, you're gathering assets. So to me, it was like another stint in being in charge of my destiny, my schedule, my ability to earn. And then I ultimately said, I got to the place is run by lawyers. It's run by, analysts. They're putting buy ratings. I mean, come on. They put buy ratings on WorldCom. Bernie Ebbers is a total scam. They had buy ratings on WorldCom. They had buy ratings on Williams Co. They had buy ratings on Enron. You can't make this shit up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm in my 20s. Is there a runway here? Like, this is getting a little weird now. So I said, I got to go back out my own. There's a whole backstory to it. I'll spare you. But that's when I ended up getting involved in Cartridge World, scaled 36 units in New York and Connecticut. That was a blast.
What year was it? So when did you leave?
2003. 2003.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
I left. I still had my water sport businesses while I was an investment banker. So I kept my hand in that world, peeled it all off. I divested myself of everything. And then I went all in on the Cartridge World deal. It was a large deal. Just to buy the rights was $500,000. It was an Australian company. And then I was actually the first customer of Cartridge World in North America.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. They just so happened while I'm doing my due diligence with an Australian company. They're like, hey, we're opening our first location in North America in Naples, Florida. So I brought an empty ink cartridge in there as the first customer. I actually did the deal with the founder's son, Ben Stokes. Great story. It was an awesome concept because I come from that school. Like people buy two things, good feelings and solutions to problems. Mm-hmm. This was a big time solution to a problem. If you extrapolated an inkjet cartridge, if you actually extrapolated it and said, okay, what am I paying per milliliter? It's more expensive than Chanel No. 5. It's more expensive than oil. It's more, pick anything. It's more expensive. Back then, you could pay upwards to $5,000 a gallon just for a black HP inkjet cartridge. Again, if you extrapolated the milliliters that you're buying, we were reverse engineering all this stuff and selling it to the consumer for 50% less than OEM. It was great. I loved it. It's phenomenal. Sold it, moved to Florida, worked for some PE firms, learned a lot. I worked for Bob Pittman, which is Pilot Group. Bob, to me, is a genius. I think he's a business to consumer absolute genius. And the people that I surrounded myself with were brilliant, learned a lot, and then went back out on my own. I mean, I just need to be out on my own.
Yeah. So where did the exposure to franchising come? And now you've I'm not saying you're not doing other stuff, but that's your biggest focus, right? Is in the franchise world, right?
Yes, that's my core. It's not only making investments in brands, but it's helping people acquire them themselves. Yes.
So how did you get into the franchise? What do you love about the franchise world?
Love it. Great question. I think that franchising is the fastest way to wealth. I really do. I think it's the quickest way. At Pilot Group, one of Bob Pittman's guys, Bob Sherman, Bob, you're brilliant. He said to me one time, you have to collapse time. You have to figure out how to collapse time. It is so true. Time is the only commodity you cannot recycle. Everyone always says, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then they're 67 years old. Like you were 30. Now, like just like that, you're 60. It's like, what the hell happened? And it's like, you have to collapse time because creating wealth, it's a force multiplying effect. It'll take you forever to get to your first million, but it's so easy to get to 5. And it's way easier to get to 10. Right? In net worth, I'm talking about. So collapsing time is everything. I truly believe that when I meet a founder of a franchise concept and I'm like, man, this is a really cool business. Never heard of you before. Tell me about how you got started. Oh, I've been doing this for 25 years. It's like 25 years of figuring out the best way to go to the market. And I get to walk right in here, pay you an initial franchise fee, execute flawlessly under your ops manual. Again, collapse time, scale, cash flow, create wealth, sell it, cash in, exit strategy, so on and so forth. So I'm, again, obsessed with that methodology that I don't have to be the guy that comes up with the idea. I don't really need, if you really think about it, if you truly defined like an entrepreneur, am I? I don't think so. I think I'm a business owner. Right? Am I an entrepreneur? If I'm an entrepreneur, what did I create? Like what app did I create? What business did I create? What concept did I? All I do is acquire other people's ideas and then I just scale them.
Yeah.
That's why I'm obsessed with franchising, because I could take an average middle manager working at the LED light division of GE and make that guy wealthy just by getting involved in a brand, holding him accountable for execution and so on. So when you ask me like, why franchising? It's the fastest way to wealth, in my opinion, if you're not super entrepreneurial. It's not for everyone, right? It's for people who want to follow a proven system. They want to be part of something bigger than one, right? They want to leverage collective intelligence and they want to scale a business and retire uncompromised. Because that's my goal with, when you really think about investing, like, why do we do what we do? It's to retire uncompromised.
So in the franchise world, there's really, I would divide it up. You can tell me if you think about it differently, but there's 3 different sort of roles in a way, in that you could be a franchisee. So a lot of people say franchisee, franchisor, right? But there's also a master franchisee, right? Or whatever they happen to call it, but let's call it master, right? And being an individual operating franchisee and being a master franchisee are very, very different things. And then you have your franchisor. So talk about those different roles, what you've played and how what you just talked about fits in, because people who oversimplify things would say, oh yeah, in franchising, you don't want to be the franchisee. You want to be the franchisor, because the franchisor is the one that makes all the money, and the franchisee is somebody who bought themselves a job, right? That's like the extreme simple, I think less nuanced and frankly, there's some truth in some elements of that, but that's an oversimplification of the story.
Yeah, I think that there's some truth to that. I work with people and it's like, what's your investment objective? It's like, I'm tired of working for they always call him the big guy, right? I'm tired of working for the big guy. I'm tired of working for corporate America. I want to go out my own. So do you just want to replace your income that you're accustomed to? Yeah. So you just want to make $110,000 a year and you're very comfortable being an employee of your own entity. Yeah, great. There's a place for you. Yes. Then there's that next guy. What do you want to do? I want to create generational stupid wealth with a family limited partnership. Okay, you're a next level guy. We need to look at these businesses that can actually stand a chance of achieving that goal. So I think that as they say, there's a seat for every ass, right? There's a place for everyone within franchising. It just depends on who you want to be. To your point, there's a hierarchy of franchising. And from the bottom, it would be a single unit franchisee, right? There's your bottom. I'm a single unit. Sometimes we call them chuck in a truck. It's just a guy that wants to drive a van and do some random handyman work or pressure washing, tree trimming. And he's super happy. Like, people frown on it. Like, not everyone wants to be rich like you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like not everyone aspires to be you. Some people are very, very comfortable just making a living and being happy and fishing and boating and doing all the things that they love. And I kind of envy those folks to a degree. No, I'm serious, to a degree, because I'm so driven and so motivated. I've sacrificed literally everything to be in business. And then I see these guys that are like on Facebook fishing on a Tuesday. And I'm like, God, if I wish maybe I was a little more like that. But anyway, with your hierarchy comment, bottom, you have a single unit franchisee. Next, a multi-unit. Multi being, let's say, 3 units. They're scaling. They have managers now, right? They have layers. They have an org chart. Like there's something. Then you have the area developer. This is someone that actually purchased, let's say, a county or several zip codes, and they want to develop this area. Much bigger deal. Then you have the master. The uniqueness of a master is that they have a right to sub-franchise to you and I. And they actually collect royalty and the initial franchise fee. Very different from everything that we discuss, because they're now acting like a franchisor. And that's how I entered franchising. I entered franchising from investment banking. I went straight to master franchising. I bought the rights to New York and Connecticut. You said it. And I then sub-franchised to folks that I felt fit the culture that I was building in those 2 states. In addition to that, I, of course, owned locations because I owned them, and I was collecting royalties on my own location, and I was collecting 40-50% of the royalty for my franchisees. And then you have the franchisor. So yeah, you're right. There's layers of involvement in the brand, and it just depends on, I always go back to your investment objectives. What do you want out of this experience? Why are you here?
Yeah, and based on what you said, I want, like, just for our listeners that are less familiar, I'm glad you laid that out, because based on what you said, I'm like, oh yeah, he must be a master franchisee, right? Like, because you didn't create the concept, but yet you're not working in the business, and you trained in multiple locations, trained all these people, right, et cetera. So it's interesting because I think some people have this oversimplification, and they either make assumptions or reject franchising as an option because they're like, oh, I'm not going to become a franchisor, but I also don't want to be the guy working in the print shop, whatever it is, or cleaning the gutters, right? No, there's a lot of things in between. And I know a lot of folks, it's interesting, there's sort of like the upper management corporate refugee types are, I know a number of folks in that demographic who've come in at the either at least multiple franchises, if not master, franchisee level, because they're not looking to clean the gutters, so to speak. They have business acumen, whatever, but they're all looking to have their own thing and build a business, and they see the opportunity in that model.
I think it's important for the audience to understand this. No franchise that I represents 600 brands. Not one of them expects you, the franchisee, the prospective franchisee, to actually do the work. And that's the big disconnect. It's like dog grooming. I don't know how to groom dogs. Good, because no one wants you grooming dogs.
Right.
There's a whole book written on this called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Yes.
If anything that requires your day-to-day involvement is called the job. Your job requires day-to-day involvement. And if you don't believe that, don't show up to work tomorrow and find out what happens. Your phone will blow up. Where are you? It's like, wait a minute.
And customers and clients getting served, is money still coming in the door if you're not there? Well, if the answer is no, then,
Exactly. I don't like anything that requires my day-to-day involvement. I want to buy a business. I know. I mean, I've owned 12 different brands, right? So when you look at, and then there were multiple units within there. Here's an example of what I'm saying, just to make a point. There was a guy I live in Florida. There's a guy in Annapolis, Maryland, that's failing in water, fire, mold, and biohazard. Failing. This business doesn't work. It sucks. You don't understand. It's different here. It was an asset sale, and you know all about asset sales, right? We're just taking over whatever he has. We paid him $120,000 for box trucks, dehumidifiers, air movers, desiccant machines, hydroxyl, ozone, all this stuff. We scaled that business to over $3 million in 36 months. The business that he did everything he could to grow, right? We ultimately sold it. My point is, I have never held a wand or extracted water from someone's house in my life.
Right.
I don't know but that did not stop me from scaling a business from South Florida in Maryland. Matter of fact, I've only stepped foot in the state of Maryland 3 times in my life, which is just crazy. So with today's technology, WEX telematics, all this stuff, you'd be surprised what we're capable of doing within franchising. And a lot of people just can't get past royalties. They can't get past the comments that you made. Yeah. Right? They just can't get past it. And I just respectfully disagree. I think they need to engage and learn and figure out that, you know what, this might be a great fit.
Let's take a break from the show for a minute so I can tell you about an incredible resource my team and I have put together for you. Secrets of Deal-Driven Growth, Creative Ways to Grow Your Business Even in Challenging Times, is a powerful ebook that helps you take DealQuest podcast episodes and apply them to your own life and business. This is the ideal tool for anyone looking for creative ways to grow as deal makers, and you can get yours now. It's as easy as heading to coreycupford.com/workbook and downloading your copy. While you're there, you can also consider joining our dynamic deal-driven community of founders, experts, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. Now back for the show. So let's talk about, listen, you gave a number of examples, and it's not even all the ones you've done where you've taken these failing businesses and, executed on them and scaled them and made them successful and sold them. What are some of and you've done it across industries, right? So if anybody thinks, he just really knew that industry, right? And, that's why he was able to do that. No, that's not why, because you've done it across multiple industries. And you already said you pretty much had no idea, right? On many of them on what. So what is it that, not any secret sauce or whatever, but there's a guy like this, I'm sure there's things that you just do consistently across industries and every one of these businesses to take it from failing to whatever. So what are the categories of how you do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
To take, because
Good question.
A lot of people don't understand how to do that. And in fact, they make assumptions that, if, and this is another mindset thing, if that person tried everything and can't make it, it's, maybe it's a bad location for that restaurant, or maybe it's, there's not a market for that, or maybe there's a whatever, right? But as a guy who sees opportunities and sees the gap, which is where, in that gap is always the opportunities, what are the big bucket things that you do in these businesses that make them so much more successful and sellable?
Right. Okay. So in all fairness, my business partner is not here, and has a lot to do operationally.
Yes.
He's brilliant. He's young. I call him a millennial trapped in a baby boomer body, or he's a baby boomer trapped in a millennial body. Excuse me. Yeah. He has a work ethic of a baby boomer. He's amazing. He has a lot to do with it. And I think if you're going to join a franchise, I think that you need to have a sound conceptual understanding of the business model. You need to understand cost to acquire customers, how to execute the model, right? How to serve the customer, how to create a sticky relationship with the customer. Retention is everything. And the gym business, by the way, has the worst retention of any business. If you don't know this is a statistical truth. If a customer walked in the front door of a gym and signed up, they will walk out the back door in under 10 months in this country. That is shocking. The retention rate in fitness is atrocious. Matter of fact, today, I just received notice that the largest Orange Theory franchisee is filing for bankruptcy. Like, these businesses are being annihilated. They're being annihilated for reasons that go far beyond retention issues. So focusing on retention, focusing on adding value to the customer, but really following the model. I am blown away at how many people join franchises and immediately want to challenge the way the franchise wants to execute the business. It blows my mind.
Right.
It absolutely
go open your own business if you want to do it your way. The whole reason you're getting into a franchise is that they have a proven systemized model that that you should be able to follow and be successful, right?
Corey, in the gym business, this particular franchise said, we pay personal trainers X dollars. Okay, just say X. When we're evaluating the due diligence, what are you paying your trainers? It was like 40, 50% more. Why? You don't understand. This is when I know that a franchisee is going to fail, and they just don't know it yet. When a franchisee or a business owner says this to me, you don't understand, it's different here. That is the death of the deal right there.
It's always different here. Yeah.
Yep. Because their toilet bowls are different there, and their roofs are different, their people are different. Like, it's complete nonsense. And we live in a time where no one wants to be accountable for anything. So of course, it must be your area and it must be the brand. And then we come in, turn it around, and capitalize off of it. So I think the takeaway when you ask that question, the number one takeaway is do a good amount of due diligence, right? Really, I think this is a weakness with most small and mid-sized business owners. They really don't understand a P&L or a balance sheet. They really don't.
Yeah.
Over 20 years of doing this, I can say to you with deep conviction that the average business owner really doesn't have a freaking clue when it comes to the numerical accountabilities of their business. And I'm blown away that they don't try and grow as a business owner and say, I really should take some accounting classes. I really should learn QuickBooks. I should know, if you ask me a question about anything, what does it cost to acquire a customer? $6 to $8. What is the average length of stay of your customer? 18 months. It's like, when I ask people these questions, they have no idea. They're just making shit up. They never know anything about their business. They don't know the difference between net, between gross, between cost of goods. They never know their labor cost. They never know their percentage of rent as it relates to top line gross. They really never know anything. That's when you know you're over your head and you're really not honing your skills as a business owner anymore. And I've often said, and I'm being sarcastic when I say this, but you talk about mindset a lot. The transition, think about the transition that needs to occur from employee to business owner. Think about what I just said. I tell people this to make the point. I would rather learn how to walk again than to go through the mental transition of being an employee in a cubicle to a business owner. That's how big it is. It's a big mindset shift. And most people are not prepared for it, in addition to not having the intestinal fortitude to be self-employed. Like it doesn't make up. It's a type of person. But execution's everything. I'm not an analysis paralysis guy. I am a data junkie. I love empirical information. I make a lot of decisions with my gut, but I can support a lot of my decisions with empirical information about the business. Why are we doing this? Here's why. Right? Why are you doing this? I don't know. 80% of our customers are female. Like, what do you mean? Why are we doing? Like, know your business. Right. Know what you're in. Know who your customer's at. Like, look at Bud Light. Look at Bud Light. Like, know your customer. You lost billions of dollars with a stupid ad campaign. Look at Target recently with the bathing suits. Know your customer. Read the room. I mean, these are basic things that, unfortunately, they're not taught. They're really not.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps answer your question, but there's a lot to unpack with that question. I mean, I could spend 45 minutes just on that, right?
No, I totally understand. And obviously, I always joke that I have such great guests on the podcast a lot of times. I'm not going to be these people that do 3-hour podcasts. It's not my thing, but we could.
I'm with you.
We could easily.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So talk to us a little bit more about the aspects of your business where you help other people, in the franchise.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If there's anyone listening or anyone out there or knows someone being displaced, we help people for free. No one believes free. Our services are free because our payment comes from the seller, the franchisor. So it is a free service. They never pay us anything. We represent 600 different brands, and we center our entire process around the investor. Why are you here? What's happening in your life? What are your investment objectives? What do you want to invest? What is your appetite for risk? What's your time horizon? I'm dealing with a lot of people who did not prepare properly for retirement. And they're like, look, man, my runway is short. I'm looking for a liquidity event in 3 to 5 years. So I want to know the time horizon, what we're dealing with here. Is anyone moving, kids going to college, all that stuff. We're all in a different phase of life. And I want to understand big picture. But we will work with that prospective buyer. And I tell them this, you're not buying anything. Get by a franchise out of your vernacular. When you're working with us, we are so disciplined that it takes 3 to 4 months to close the loop on due diligence before you can even get to a yes, franchising is the right investment vehicle for me or no. So I just tell them, forget buy. There's no selling in what we do. It is purely consultative. We hold their hand through this entire daunting process. There are 4,000 brands in this country. They're not all worth buying. And I publicly come out on our own podcast, which is Pursuit of Profit. And we made a bold statement recently. Don't invest in food. Inflation has, this last 4 years, has destroyed the food industry. Destroyed. If you're lucky, you make 5 to 8% net in food. That's how bad your cost of goods have been jacked up. Your labor's been jacked up. Your rent has been jacked up. Your supply chain is disrupted. I mean, it is crazy. Your insurance is through the roof. Oh, and by the way, we happen to live in a time where the labor market is non-existent because these kids are making 35 grand on YouTube right? Instead of working for you. So there's so much there that I'm a hold on food, and I'm long.
You can't raise your prices to cover all that.
You know what? That Corey, well said. That's always the go-to answer from someone that pushes me back. Let me tell you something. The consumer has price increase fatigue. They're over it and they're finding solutions. Like white tablecloth, they went to fast casual. If they can't afford fast casual, they went to the QSR space, which is a quick service restaurant space. It's a trickle down effect. No one's trickling to white tablecloth. No one. No one's trickling really to Chili's or to TGI Fridays. Being in the middle is a dangerous place to be. Yeah. You're either super cheap, $5 footlong type stuff, CCS, or you're going, or you're going Ruth's Chris, you're going, Peter Luger's, but the middle is a really tough place to be right now. Yeah. And I just got off the phone last week with a guy owns for 20 years, 2 IHOPs, 2 Dairy Queens, and a sports bar, liquidated everything. Why? Can't make any money anymore. I used to make 20%. I'm now single digit net. It's not worth it. And I won't get involved. I just told you about the labor market. There's all sorts of issues there. So yeah, that's what we do with clients. One, novel, Corey. We tell the truth. We have no problem calling out an industry. We have no problem telling someone what we know about a brand or an industry, like I just said. Like even gyms. With the invention of semaglutides, GLP disruptors, Ozempic, Wegovy, I've got family members losing 2 pounds a week for doing nothing. And you're wondering why the largest franchisee of Orange Theory is filed for bankruptcy. There's a retention problem, and the pill is now here. You got AI risk, you got Amazon risk. People need to really understand how to manage those risks and align them with someone that sees the world with their eyes wide open and can advise them. And that's what we do, and we do it great.
Love it.
I think we're the best at it, quite frankly.
One last question before I do my final 2. Who's not a fit for franchising, right? Because one of the things that I know we discussed in the pre-call and, just the way you said it now, like you're honest with people, right? And not everybody's, it is a model out there. It's a great model for the right people, but for some people it's not a fit. What are the biggest reasons somebody's not a fit?
Yeah. Number one, super entrepreneurial people. We're not a fit. We kind of talked about that as we compare a business owner and an entrepreneur. They're too entrepreneurial. They want to modify the model. They want to challenge the status quo. They want to change operational efficiencies. They want to change vendors. Like they would literally change the vendor for the grease for the French fries at McDonald's. Like they would actually do that. That's a license to print money. Leave it alone. Buy it and execute it. Nope. They have to meddle with the sesame seeds. They have to meddle with the model. They're not a fit for franchising. They would add hot dogs to the menu. They would do silly things, and they're not a fit. Second person that's not a fit, and we all have these people in our life, Mr. Was Gonna, negativity, right? The guy, you said it at the top of the call, I was gonna do that. We call him Mr. Was Gonna, because they're always gonna do something, but they do nothing because they're bad at executing, and they're never gonna make a good franchisee. On top of that, they're usually negative, and they spend their day analyzing reasons for failure, reasons to not do things, instead of analyzing reasons for results. Those are the 2 people we flag on the phone and just say, you're not a fit. Don't do this.
Great. Yeah. Interesting on the sort of the 2 extremes where, right, like where it's not a fit. So Cliff, before I ask you my final question, where can people find out more about all the things you have going on, if they're interested in your services or anything else you have happening?
Yes, thank you. You go to our website, francity.com, FRANOCITY.com. I have a podcast that doesn't compete with you, which is called Pursuit of Profit. We interview founders of franchise brands. It is quickly becoming the most popular podcast in franchising. All value, no commercials, no asks, just value, just like you do. Add value to the audience. That's why I love your show. You just add value to your listeners. So that's the best way to find me. And I'd love to just schedule an initial call and see if there's fit. As you said, who's a good fit?
Final question on the podcast is always about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything from freedom around the world for people from oppression to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
Freedom to me is living my life my own way, doing exactly what I want to do. Most recently, my freedom has been having enough money to own multiple homes and travel in different states and enjoy different cultures, enhance the quality of my life and my family, but more importantly, health. Everyone always said that money can't buy you health, and I respectfully disagree with that. I have now access with capital to some of the smartest people in alternative medicine, like biohacking, anti-aging. And some of the advancements over there are remarkable. If you're not listening to like Huberman or Osprey, right, or Atia, this is just brilliant stuff. If you're into health and you actually want to grow old and be able to really use your money, that to me has been my newfound freedom, is unlocking my health potential.
Love that. Love that. That's a conversation I'm in as well. Awesome. Cliff, thanks for being such a great guest on the DealQuest Podcast.
You're the best, man. Thanks for your time and thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to kupferlaw.com. That's kupferlaw.com. And if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.